I'm Richard Thompson, your host for today's edition of Austin Faith Dialogue. Please join us.
This is Austin Faith Dialogue, a public affairs program discussing the important crossroad of religion in life, produced by Austin Metropolitan Ministries in cooperation with KTBC TV. Austin Faith Dialogue highlights the interaction of the religious community with the social and cultural issues throughout our area. Now, today's edition of Austin Faith Dialogue.
Today on Austin Faith Dialogue, we'll be taking a look at a very unique institution, the seminary. Long recognized as the single most effective way to prepare persons for life in the church as clergy and as laity, seminaries are described as the ultimate platform for faith, education, and growth. Today we'll be taking a look at two of these very special institutions operating here in our Austin community. Our guests are Dean Durston McDonnell of the Episcopal Seminary of the Southwest and August Wenzel of the Lutheran Seminary program in the Southwest. We welcome both of you gentlemen to our gathering here today.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Thank you.
And I'd like, for the sake of the viewers, just to picture where you're located out there on Duval. Give us the cross street. And
well, we're on Duval and Ratherview, which is a one-block extension of 31st Street. So it's Duval and 31st and Duval and 32nd.
Okay. And it's a very lovely setting. I mean, it's just with the live oak trees and all. Give us a little bit of a sense of how that all came about.
Well, it's a 4-acre site that was originally belonged to a family, the Rathers. They had two daughters who went to the University of Texas, who fell in love with two university professors and married. And so the family were living there. They had one son who died tragically. And years afterward, they were looking for a way to have a living memorial to him. And we had a bishop who realized that there was no Episcopal seminary in the Southwest. And those two interests came together, and they agreed to give the property to the Seminary of the Southwest for the founding of a new seminary, with a proviso that they could continue to live there and that the seminary would be built around their house.
I see. And that house is still there as part of your meeting.
The house is still there, and the original zoning variance from the city of Austin specified that we not change the residential character of the neighborhood. So we have a seminary that's nestled in amongst beautiful live oak trees.
Oh, yes. How long ago was that happened?
That happened in 1952, was the founding of the seminary, and the buildings were put up in 55.
I see. And have continued to be put up until just this, within this last year. You've had a recent addition.
Yes, our most recent addition was the building of a new campus center, a dining hall and a lecture auditorium.
Okay. Well, we'll be coming back and taking a closer look at those buildings and all. Sure. August, you were telling me before the show that the Lutheran school has been here for, what, about 20 years?
Yes. It started in 1974. The first classes were held in January of 1975.
Okay. Now, how is it that the Lutherans came to not only set this program up here, but do so closely in cooperation with the Episcopalians?
In 1972 and again in 1974, the American Lutheran Church, due to some prompting by its bishops, began to realize that it really needed to pay particular attention to developing leadership for ministry with the Hispanic community. And the way that was handled at those days was to assign a responsibility like that to a particular seminary. In this case, it was assigned to Wartburg Theological Seminary in Dubuque, Iowa. And they really took some very strong steps to make that happen, but it wasn't possible in Dubuque, Iowa. That wasn't the hotbed of Hispanic ministry activity. And the two bishops that were really serving in the Southwest had already done some preliminary conversations. So they had located the Episcopal Seminary here in town and Austin Presbyterian Theological Seminary, both of which were at the same time beginning to struggle with the same kind of leadership development issues. And that partnership was really formed through that kind of mutual searching for ways to increase our effectiveness in that leadership development.
Okay, so it was the interest in Hispanic ministry, and it was the fact that you're now sharing facilities with the Episcopal Seminary meant that you had a common interest in that as well.
Yes, we were very much concerned with the development of Hispanic ministry. The way it was put was that location determines vocation. And in the Southwest, that means we cannot ignore the reality of Hispanic presence. We were looking for ways to develop a program in that. We were fortunate to have a graduate of our seminary and a graduate of Wartburg Seminary who had been a rector of a seminary in Mexico, whom the Lutheran Church called to come back. And so we appointed him a faculty member, Professor Hilmer Krause, and he was the beginning of the program. So from the beginning, there's been an organic relationship between the Lutheran seminary program and our seminary.
I see. And this particular individual was a catalyst for that to happen.
Yeah, I believe that Hilmer Krause, because of the space available at the Presbyterian campus, was actually housed there in the early stages.
I see.
And that really was a very important piece of the total partnership that was being formed. But as the courses developed and the program at the Episcopal Seminary came together with what Hilmer was doing, he was really then relocated to the Episcopal campus. And those courses became part of a joint curriculum that we share to this day.
Okay. Well, just one final overview of that part of town. The Presbyterian Seminary is on the other side of Duval, and
Yes.
you're located on the east side, and you folks among the Lutherans have an administrative office in a house nearby.
Yes, we
across the
rent a
street.
building from the Episcopal Seminary as our administrative office center.
But your students study on campus at the Episcopal Seminary, take courses from
Yes.
Episcopalians, and
Eat in the campus dining hall.
yeah, so that
Live in
ecumenical.
their housing.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if there's any place else in the country that you have quite that cooperative interchange between your two groups.
I think it's unusual, and it makes us a de facto ecumenical seminary. The Lutherans affect the Episcopalians, and the Episcopalians affect the Lutherans.
All right.
Yes, without the Episcopal and the Presbyterian presence, our program would not be possible.
Okay.
But the courses that we share are really core courses in our shared curriculum.
Now, in addition to the Hispanic ministry that both of you have your emphasis on, there are other aspects of these schools that are, I think we can appreciate. I'm thinking, for instance, of the fact that you've got a library that is serving both groups, not just locally, but on a national basis. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, we have a library of about 185,000 volumes, and that is composed of actually three collections: the Episcopal collection, the Lutheran collection, and an Hispanic collection that came from the Episcopal Seminary in Puerto Rico, which we acquired when that seminary closed. In addition to that theological collection, which is open to people in Austin as well as students, we house the National Archives for the Episcopal Church. So anybody in the Episcopal Church that wants to do serious research has got to come to Austin and do research at our library.
And you have folks using that a good bit?
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. It serves the entire national church.
And tell us about the Lutheran side of the holdings there, August.
Of the library collection? It was actually the Christ Seminary in Exile Library that was formed as a result of some exile from the Lutheran Church Missouri Synod, the seminary faculty, and they assembled a library for their own institution, which with the formation of the now Evangelical Lutheran Church, that library came to Austin. It was given to Wartburg and housed in the Episcopal library. It's about 25,000 volumes that are in circulation.
So this was at the time that there was formation of the denomination
Yes.
as you have it now and carryover from previous times.
That's correct.
Okay, so that means that for a school your size, you would have an unusually large number of resources to offer in that regard.
We would, and I want to say also that we are working in partnership with the Presbyterian Seminary.
Yes.
And the librarians quite consciously order books to complement each other. They are strong in certain areas, and we are stronger in other areas. We're strong in patristics in the early church. They're very strong in the Reformation. And they deliberately acquire books in consultation with each other. and we have complete cross-lending possibilities and cross-registration. So the theological resources are really enormous between all three institutions.
Okay. Well, I think that the fact that you also have interaction in other parts of that campus, I think a little later in the show we'll have a chance to talk about your new facility. The library's been around for a while,
Yes.
but the campus center is
Brand
new,
new,
which allows for such new outreaches as teleconferencing and your chapel with its liturgy and the arts. We'll look forward to talking about that more, but we got to take a break now. So
Okay.
if you folks would just bear with us for a few moments, we'll be back in just a moment on Austin Faith Dialogue.
Serving Austin means serving you. That has always been the primary goal of Austin Metropolitan Ministries. We are religion in action through the work of these organizations. Each plays a key role in making the capital city a better place to live, but we can't do it alone. Do you have some spare time, talents, or any resources that you can share? If you do, please call AMM at 472-7627, because serving Austin means serving you.
Welcome back to Austin Faith Dialogue and our discussion of the Austin Seminaries. And what we're about to see is a video produced by the Episcopal Theological Seminary, and we'll have a chance to reflect upon that in just a moment.
Hello, and welcome to the Episcopal Theological Seminary of the Southwest. In the next few minutes, you'll be introduced to the process of preparation for ministry that takes place in a very special way here at ETSS.
Worship, academics, and community are the way we define spiritual formation at the Seminary of the Southwest. The love of God and the love of learning are the key characteristics of spiritual formation in this community.
Women and men from dioceses throughout the Episcopal Church come to this seminary in Austin, Texas, to prepare for ministry, both lay and ordained. This formation for ministry takes place in the classroom and the chapel, in shared moments of campus fellowship, and through quiet reflection.
How would you explain to us why the demons in Mark seem to recognize the position of Jesus as the Son of God?
And after we would talk about that, it was interesting. They saw that it was better to go find a friend and maybe marry them than to go look for his spouse that they had Adam.
It is such an evenly balanced discussion as to how we should interpret the presence of the kingdom of God.
Glory to the Father, and to the Son, and to the Holy Spirit. As it was in the beginning, is now, and will be forever. Amen.
The services in the chapel, the choir, the tears, the praising, that's the rock, that's the holding place for this community, and that's how community to a large extent is formed, I think.
81 says he must follow me, says the Lord. And where I am, there shall my servant also be.
Holy Gospel of our Lord Jesus Christ according to Luke.
Glory to you, Lord Christ.
Because I like going to church every single day. A daily prayer, interrupting your class time with your fellow students and praying together, that is a really, really uplifting experience.
Well, those scenes from your seminary, I think, are quite touching in terms of giving the sense of what spiritual formation means. That was referred to a couple of times. For folks who are wondering about how seminaries forward that and nurture that, give us just each sense from your points of view of what that means.
Well, in our seminary, it takes some practical turns. It means, for instance, in our program, our students are required the first term to be on pass-fail system, not taking grades A, B, C, D, because we want to foster a cooperative rather than a competitive way of living. From the beginning, in our seminary, the students have lived off campus because we want them to live the way they're going to be living when they go out and serve in the parish.
You have no dormitories there.
Very few. Deliberately limited number of dormitory spaces. So the majority of people are going to be living the way they're going to be living when they go out to work in the church. And the building of the new campus center has had to do with spiritual formation. It's given us a dining hall where we can eat meals together and increase our sense of community, and where we can gather for social functions as well as for eating. And that's a part of the formation of the whole community.
Well, that puts the emphasis on experience and relationships as distinct from just what you're learning out of books.
Well, what we're trying to do is to show the relationship between the book learning and the practical experience, and to say, unless you're thoughtful, you can't be a leader in the church. Therefore, you need an education. But we're not producing scholars. We're producing people who are going to be leaders for the church.
Okay. August, can you give your point of view on this?
Well, in addition to this, our students, of course, participate in all of the items that Dean MacDonald mentioned, is the participation of Lutheran students in the Episcopal daily worship committees, as well as Lutheran services are also held on Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays, so that our students can develop the experience of preparing and presenting Lutheran worship experiences of different kinds.
What does spiritual formation in the context of Hispanic ministry mean, since both of you are so much into that in your schools?
Well, I'd want to broader the term. We use the Hispanic ministry, or attention to Hispanic ministry, as a window for a wider aspect of formation. The formation question is formation for ministry in a cross-cultural setting. All of our graduates, even if they're serving a completely Anglo congregation, and most will be, those congregations will be living in cities or towns or villages that are multiracial, multi-ethnic, and have different economic groups within the city. So we want people who are prepared to cross all those class and ethnic lines. And that's the reason we have such a strong emphasis on Hispanic ministry. It's a way, if you understand how to leave your biases behind and enter the Hispanic reality, then you can do that with other people in other groups.
All right.
Both programs also ask students to be involved in the local parish life, to be active in congregations. In addition to that, the Lutheran students are also required to do a year of intern service in a congregation somewhere in our church. For those that are choosing to specialize, that is to prepare themselves primarily for ministry in the Hispanic community, that's the kind of setting in which they would do their intern service, because that requires fluency in Spanish as well.
I noticed that the video had several scenes of your chapel. As spiritual formation goes, tell us how that, and I know some emphasis on the arts there. How does that enter into that?
Well, worship and liturgy is always a strong point of the Episcopal Church. Our chapel's built in a way that's unusual. It's a deliberately modern building that has flexible space so that we can rearrange the furniture. You saw liturgical dance in the chapel. The walls are not walls, they're glass, so that you never leave the outside world.
Oh.
Every Episcopal church has a cross on the altar or above the altar. Our cross is outside. It's a theological statement that Christ died not in a church, but outside where people came and go. So our building is meant to make a statement that we're not retreating from the world, that even while we're at worship, it's giving glory to God so that we are prepared for service in the world.
I think that you have Lutheran services in there as well.
Yes, we do.
Yes, and how would you do that differently than the Episcopalians would in that chapel setting?
We don't really rearrange the chapel for Lutheran services. Ours is also a liturgical service, and we do participate in the Eucharist, in which Episcopal students are, and faculty and others are often present, as well as our Lutheran students participate and worship in the Episcopal services as well.
There are even certain occasions on a regular basis each semester where the Lutherans host us to a Lutheran service in our chapel. So the Lutherans conduct Lutheran worship and invite the whole Episcopal community to come, and we worship with them.
I see. So that nurtures mutual appreciation to worship together.
Yes, very important.
You know, I think it's interesting, too, to notice the difference between a seminary and a divinity school. You hear about Chicago Divinity School or Yale Divinity School. Or, for the general public, what would be the difference between those?
I think the easy way to say the difference is that divinity schools tend to be graduate schools of religion who are training scholars who tend to serve in academia. Seminaries are producing theologically educated persons who are going to serve the church in leadership positions, parishes, hospital chaplaincies, but there's more of a pastoral emphasis and an integration of experience and practical training with the academic.
One of the things, too, that I noticed that you do is a good bit of emphasis on lay theology and training.
Yes, we have right now 2 programs, and we're about to start a 3rd. We have a 2-year degree, a Master of Arts in Religion for laypersons who want to study theology. We have a new program that we'll be starting this fall, a Master of Arts in Pastoral Care. That is pastoral care, pastoral counseling, and spiritual formation. And that'll be starting this fall. And then we have an informal program that's offered to the city of Austin called the Lay School of Theology. And those are 2 or 3 mini courses that are offered in the fall and then 2 or 3 in the spring. They go 6 to 8 weeks. They're not for credit, but they're taught by faculty from the Lutheran, the Episcopal, and the Presbyterian program.
Now, you say available to the city of Austin. Are you talking about the council and the mayor? And
No, I'm talking about ordinary folks. Now, we advertise through Episcopal, Presbyterian, Lutheran, and Methodist churches. And anybody in the city of Austin that's interested in Lay School of Theology is welcome to take the course.
And you participate in that too, August?
Yes, we do. It is the Episcopal program. As a faculty, we often resource lay schools of theology for our church in other areas of the state.
I see.
Very often through our college in Seguin, Texas Lutheran College.
Oh, okay. And so you've got connections with that college?
Yes.
And give us some examples elsewhere in the state where you have connections.
Well, we work closely with the synods that serve this area. There are three evangelical Lutheran church synods that serve Texas and Louisiana. And we work with the bishops and the candidacy committees in those areas on site, working with candidates, as well as invited an opportunity presents itself, lay schools.
In the moments that we have left, as we are thinking about reaching out beyond Austin into the state and even beyond, the whole field of telecommunications is coming on board within the church, so that you can, students can have the benefit of what's going on elsewhere in the country or even in the world. I know that you've got an example of that coming up early.
Well, we do. Our new campus center has given us a lecture auditorium with a downlink capacity to receive teleconferences. And we've got one coming this January. It's a national conference of Trinity Institute out of New York City, which is downlinked on Episcopal churches and cathedrals across the whole nation. And we plan to be offering downlink conferences to the wider Austin church community on a regular basis. There are a large number of networks growing up that offer conferences, and we want to serve as a resource for the wider Austin community.
So on this one that's coming up, it's out of Trinity Episcopal Church in New York.
That's right. And
one on Wall Street.
That's a one on Wall Street, but it's offered nationally. And it has Parker Palmer, John Updike, and several other very well-known people in theological circles. And it's going to be Monday and Tuesday, and I don't have the dates right off the top of my head, but it's the 23rd and 24th, the 24th and 25th.
Okay. John Updike, the author?
The author, yes.
He's an Episcopalian?
He's an Episcopalian.
All right, well...
Some readers would find that hard to believe, but in fact he has a very deep theological understanding of human nature.
Right. I've had occasion to read some of his books on Run, Rabbit, Run, and see the Bardian influence in that.
That's right. My wife wouldn't agree though.
Oh, okay. Well, that'll be the topic for another program sometime. In terms of your interest in this teleconferencing, does that carry over with the Lutherans as well?
Yes, our church is in the process now of seeking bids for the equipment to have two-way audio-video communication through compressed digital technology. And it is our intention to have that equipment in place on the Episcopal campus for use by our students, faculty, and the community.
Okay. Well, you're sharing today over this electronic means what the community can appreciate in the way of the seminaries in our midst. And we want to thank you, Durst McDonald, August Wenzel, for being with us.
Thank you.
Thank
It's
you.
been good to be here.
And good for you folks to join us today as well. And I hope you'll be back next week on our next edition of Austin Faith Dialogue. I'm Richard Thompson, extending peace to you all. Good day.
For more information, call Austin Metropolitan